if you want to achieve this kind of improvement. I feel like I'm selling a course or a supplement. If you want to achieve this kind of improvement. This is my guide to improvement. And how would Bob Ross talk? Finishing what you start. Because I know I'm not the only one who has trouble with that. Maybe you have a goal in mind that you really want to achieve, whether it be learning a new skill or just sticking to something like a new habit. If you're somebody who gets discouraged really easily, so like you start working towards your goal, but then you get discouraged and bam, stop working on it. I think this video and the kind of mindset I will go over today will probably be at least a little bit helpful. If you're watching this right now, probably, maybe, you've got this notion that if you start something, you gotta finish it. So when you start working towards a goal, there's something you have in sight. There's something you want to reach. But this thing moves around. It changes a lot. The goal that you wanted at the start might be different from, let's say, a week later. Even though, let's say, initially, you start working on a book. Like, you start writing a book. So your goal is to, you know, write a book. But then, as you get closer and closer to this goal, the goal might change a little bit. It might not just be to write a book, it might be all of a sudden to write a screenplay. Right? Which is a little different than a book. And then you make your way towards that goal. The new goal. Then all of a sudden, for some reason, you're not interested in it anymore. And it's possible that you've already reached your goal in a sense. So sometimes the goal is not to finish whatever it is that you've started working on. The goal could be knowing that you've got the discipline to write a few chapters. Or to just feel the thrill of writing a screenplay, or learn what writing a screenplay means for you. Or to regain a sense of passion for your writing. It sometimes has nothing to do with finishing a project. So it's important to know that when you've reached your destination, you've reached it. And that's okay as it is. So I heard that it takes 66 days. It takes 66 days to establish a habit. Let's say each square represents a day, right? A day. And ideally, if you're working on a project, you want to work on that project every single day. As much as you can. With the most focus that you can muster. As efficiently, as productively, as joyfully as you can. Every single day. What ends up happening? Maybe the first day it's really exciting. So you work on it a little bit. And then a few days later you realize you haven't worked on it for the past few days. But then after some time passes, you just can't bring yourself to continue. And in addition, those first 2 times you really put all your heart into it, so you're a little disappointed in your results, and you're a little burnt out from those first 2 days where you really worked on whatever skill it was or whatever project it is. And so my recommendation, if you're having trouble with just working on your project or working on the skill you want to learn consistently, we're just imagining that there's 66 of these boxes. To do your skill or project, you know, a little bit a day, just a little bit. That's why I'm using a really light green color here. Actually, I should probably change this to here. What happens? You work on it really hard for just a couple days. What's realistic is just to do a little bit every day. And maybe you might miss one day by accident here and there, but after 66 days, you've established that habit. And then 1 or 2 days, you might be a little bit more motivated to work a little bit more on it. But it's important to just do a little bit every day. And this is really helpful to also avoid burning out. And if you have experienced burnout before, you know what I mean. Probably the most difficult about this is having the self-control. I know for me, when I get really excited about a project, I'll go all out for a couple days, and then after that I totally lose motivation. However, sometimes self-control is not enough, and self-control does not work. The next thing I would like to talk about is kind of related to just what I just covered. So it's the importance of small gains. Again, with this light green color. Small gains plus consistency. Best place you can see small gains actually working, tiger parenting, which is really prevalent, I know, in Chinese culture. Basically where parents will force a lot of learning and rigid schedules onto their children. Back when I used to play violin, I would see all of these 2-year-old or like 4-year-old kids, and they would be so good at violin. They would be playing the most difficult pieces in the world. These young talents will often taper off. So, of course, like your typical kid isn't gonna care about those kind of things, right? So they're not really working at them. And maybe they'll pick up piano, and if they're not really interested in it, they won't work on it that much. And, you know, maybe their skill level will go up over the years a little bit. But for tiger parented kids, because they're working consistently they're being forced to work consistently at the skill for hours at a time, sometimes every single day, even if they too may absolutely hate what they're doing. And that is just to show how powerful just doing something every single day is. Because imagine if you actually you're doing something you like. That is so powerful. If you're doing something you like and you're doing it consistently, if there's a kid who gets all the resources to do something they truly like, a lot of times what you see is it's just crazy growth. Just crazy growth. And that kind of growth where you're really doing something you love, that type of growth is sustainable. So for those kids who are doing something they really love and getting the resources, so they're doing this every single day, maybe in small ways, as they grow older, it continues. That trend continues up, as long as they have that interest still. But for tiger parented kids, what usually happens, there's this point where you just cannot push past doing something you're not so into, or push past, you know, all the struggle that being forced into essentially doing things every day. Because at a certain point you need the flexibility to be able to grow to the next level. And a lot of these kids don't have that because they were tiger parented. And oftentimes the field will level out and it will become less of an exponential curve, or at least a weaker one. That's why I think tiger parenting works to some degree, when you're able to, you know, force a kid into doing something a little bit every day. It's actually really powerful, and it's much easier to intimidate a kid into being consistent every day than an adult with more power over their own life. Next thing I would like to mention is something I will probably mention again in the future. I already mentioned it once in my previous video, If you see improvement as a linear process, it's really easy to be discouraged, because if you want to improve more, that means you have to put in more work. And that gets really tiring. If improving more means putting in more work all the time, I mean, nah, I just want to be where I am if that's good enough. It's easy to be like, that's too much work. If you got lack of motivation and you're upset about it, or if you've got a goal you want to reach, you can't reach it, and you're upset about it, there's something going on there. There's something to leverage there. If you felt nothing at all about it, that's a different story. Maybe you're just happy where you are, which is okay. That's also okay. What we're doing here is trying to find ways to hack our brain in a sense, or at least show our brain some love. So if we think about it like, okay, we start out having no skill at all, and then we work hard for a period of time, we level up. We work hard for a period of time, we level up. We work hard for a period of time, and we level up. And I know I have felt this way before. Sometimes it feels like after I've gotten to that point, sometimes it feels like because I'm at the more advanced levels now, I have to work so much harder to get to the next point. So if I put in the same amount of effort over the same amount of time, all of a sudden, for some reason, I can't reach this next level and I fall short just a bit. You know? And at times it feels like, yeah, improvement isn't linear. Improvement, it gets harder and harder to improve. It's true generally, like, as you get to the higher levels of a skill, improvement becomes slower. And that can be discouraging. I would actually propose that if you focus on the right things and enjoy the process, improvement can totally be like this. And let me explain why. Why I think this way, because I know some people would probably disagree with that. I know most people would probably agree more with this model where it's like you're learning a language and this is the beginner stage is really easy to improve at. The intermediate stage, it's much more difficult and slow. And the advanced stage, it's a slow grind. As long as you focus on that consistency, what happens is that the little improvement you make at the start, because you're better at the skill, the next day you do it more efficiently. And that means the next day you're able to improve more than the previous day. And so it becomes a cycle of improving more and more. More and more and more and more. That's just my very simple explanation of that. So you work on your project just a little bit. What this means is that you've improved your skills just a little bit. So then when the next day comes, you're going to be using this new and improved skill. You'll be using this new and improved skill to work on whatever it is. So all of a sudden you've got a higher chance of making a bigger gain. And because you're making a bigger gain and exploring more of your project or whatever area it is you're studying, this means you're leveling up that skill even more than the previous day. Even more, okay. And that is why the process is not linear, because this will keep happening and happening. And you'll level it up even more. Again, the two main ingredients of this is actually enjoying the process and the, small gains consistently. Let's just say if you're not tapping into your potential, yeah. or not leveraging what you're good at, it is actually like this. If you've reached your goal, you can stop at any of these points. That's what I was stressing at the beginning. Stopping at any of these points could be a goal reached. So of course what you see is up and down, and then dramatically failing. So the important thing to note is that is just a very small sample from the long term. This is long term. And when you zoom into that, yes, it's gonna look like this. But for the long term, it's actually going up. If you want to achieve this kind of improvement, I feel like I'm selling a course or a supplement. If you want to achieve this kind of improvement, it's really important to know what to prioritize. I discovered this concept. I learned about this concept when I learned about a lot of things when I was learning Japanese. What I did was on my priority list, so this is, let's call it a high prio and low prio. The mistake I did, I spent all my time memorizing new words. And I think this is what a lot of people do. They think it's counterintuitive. They think if I study, if I keep grinding, that is the way. If I put in the hours here, that is how I will improve. This is what we're taught to do in school. We're taught to memorize. We're taught to learn. We're taught to suck in all the information from textbooks. That's what we're taught to do in school. These things here, memorizing new words, memorizing new grammar, ingesting textbook information. These things, they promote linear growth at the very best, where you're just trying to memorize, let's say, 100 words, and it takes you about the same amount of time to memorize another 100 words. Right? And it takes you about the same amount of time to memorize another 100 words. And the more exponential way to go about that would be to use the 100 words you just learned to memorize the next 200, and to use the next 200 to help you memorize the next 300. And all of a sudden you have this kind of graph. But that's not the way that most people go about it. When it comes to deciding on what to learn, the skills that will support the other skills that you want to engage in. Well, actually, this doesn't support kanji. But the skills that will support the other skills that are needed to build up your skill pyramid are the best skills to focus on. So these skills are the best to focus on at the start. The skills at the bottom here. Kanji will help support you reading Japanese. With reading Japanese, it'll help support you learning new grammar and memorizing new words. So kanji really is the holy grail when it comes to learning Japanese. Kanji, media consumption, grammar, I would say, and then vocab. And then these things will trickle down, basically. What you want is the things on the top to trickle down and help everything below it. And this will help you improve. And also give you enough encouragement to finish what you start. Because when you see improvement, when you see results, honestly, results are one of the best motivators to finish what you start.